Hello, this is Purple Sauce here, and I just wanted to talk about deck building for No Hope for just a moment. I've seen that there's not really been a lot of great advice when it comes to No Hope and actually building a deck properly. So I kind of just wanted to go over that. Like a lot of people say, just take damage. That's usually not a great idea because the problem is when they spawn things, there's not always audio cues for when things are spawned. So there's a lot of times where you might miss something, you might end up taking some damage. So it's pretty hard to just say just take damage, especially when if you do the math, your damage in this game is pathetically low. So if you take a low multiplier, say let's say you take what's a damage card that gives you 25% damage for like losing your health. Let's say you take here glass cannon. Let's say you take glass cannon just to get 25% damage, but you're losing 30% of your health. That's the trade-off. So a lot of people start dying because they're not in a coordinated group and they run glass cannon. If you're in a coordinated group, you can probably get away with this. Then again, if you're in a coordinated group, you can do whatever you want, right? So, but if you're just playing randoms or solo, this is not that great of a card because, well, there's a lot of reasons for that. If you're solo, your bots are playing health plus cards. You're not taking advantage of those, so that's already a negative. Along with it means you're going to get less out of it, these cards as well. So it's just things to think about, which we're going to go over these cards too. So just some general cards that you're going to want to have. You're going to want to have these two. Unless you're melee, you don't need this one if you're not melee. I mean, if you're melee, I mean, you don't want this one because you're going to have other cards. But if you are using guns like most people would be using, you do want amped up. So what this does is whenever there's a horde spawn, they're going to be planning a horde spawn to basically tops out your health when everyone's using this. You're going to want on your mark. The reason why you want this is the move speed is kind of nice when you're shooting. The reload speed is really, really nice, and squad speed is nice too. But the main thing here is that everyone gets 7.5% ammo. So if everyone's using this, you get 25% ammo, you start getting your ammo topped off, and you stop having ammo problems. So pretty much everyone needs to be running on your mark, except for pure melee decks, because they need damage reduction. As for copper cards, you should always be running shared or wealth. There's no reason to not run this card. It doesn't make sense to not run this card. Everyone gets 100 copper. When everyone runs this card, everyone gets 1600. If you're not running this card, I question what the fuck you're doing, because you're screwing your teammates over. Like, it's a free 400 copper for the whole team. 1600 in total. It's a great card. Now, as for the other copper cards, rather than looking at the deck, I'd rather just show you all of them. Bounty Hunter is pretty good. The reason why Bounty Hunter is good because it also works in hives. You're going to be killing a lot of mutations. Even if you only do half the hive, you're probably still going to get like at least 150 copper out of this. Compound interest is worthless. You're going to be spending all your copper anyway. There's one scenario where compound interest is good, and that's if you're in a coordinated group. Again, you're going to notice a lot of these cards are only good in coordinated groups. That's if you're in a coordinated group, you all have this, you have 20%, and at the end of the level, you all give your copper to that one person. That's when this card becomes good. Other than that, if you don't have a specific strategy around it, don't do it. This card is trash, never use it. It's literally one of the worst cards in the game. You can do the math. No Hope, the copper powers are 25. There are a couple 50s in there, but they're supposed to be all 25. And if you just do the math on it, this card's trash. Don't use it ever. If you use money grubbers, you need to be using copper scavenger with it. Except the problem is, once you leave Act 1 and you start doing Act 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, you're not going to have time to pick up all those copper piles. So this becomes substantially worse than guaranteed copper cards like Share the Wealth and Hazard Play. I don't know if this works in hives. This doesn't. Yeah, this doesn't work in hives. So that's the big problem with hazard pay is that if you go on hives, this doesn't work. But Bounty Hunter does. If you really, really had to choose, I'd probably say that if everyone took Copper Scavenger, like if you had a team of 4 and you did a pre-made team, you're probably better off with Copper Scavenger than Hazard Pay. But Hazard Pay does have its juices. I mean, it's free 250 copper. That's 2 flashbangs, by the way. That's very useful. Because you're going to need a lot of flashbangs, especially for the bosses, right? So you don't need down in front. The reason why I have this card is because I mostly play solo. Typically, what you're gonna do is you're gonna stand off to the side so that way you don't get shot, right? You don't run around like crazy, you don't do all that stuff. However, if you just want to be brain dead and you don't care about that and you don't want to do team damage, just crouch and just put this in your deck and crouch and you're good. Cold brew coffee is something I bring in every deck. The main reason why I use this is for the 25% use speed and the extra reload speed. There are other use speed cards in the game. We can go over all of those. Use speed is very important. So you see here, this is very important to get use speed. So what is use speed? Use speed is basically how fast you interact with stuff. So when you have to place bombs, when you have to like load something like the cannon on Act 1, things like that, that's what use speed is for. Don't get this one, you don't want minus damage resistance, not on No Hope. I've seen some people saying minus damage resistance doesn't make a difference. It does, because there's a corruption card that limits your health to 60, and if you have minus damage resistance, you're getting one-shotted. So when a lot of people get one-shotted by that card is because you have minus damage resistance cards. This is the best one bar none. It says that you will randomly be blinded. It really doesn't matter. It just really doesn't have an effect, especially if you have a good memory and you just remember where things are for like half a second, because that's all that's really gonna matter for that blind doesn't do anything. So if you're looking for the best use speed card and you find this out in the field, just take it. This is pretty much going to guarantee that everything is really good. This is followed by screwdriver. This will be the next one that you use. If you see, also something we need to talk about, if you see anything that says revive speed, trash. Anything that says revive is trash. The reason why I'm saying that is because defibrillators will revive people, okay? And 2, you shouldn't be dying. If you're dying, it's probably because you're in the first couple parts of an act. And if you're in the first couple parts and your team wipes, you're better off just restarting. You need to plan around not dying. You don't plan for failure, you plan for success, if that makes sense. But that being said, that's why I do use coffee, because you do need some use speed and the reload speed. It's just icing on the cake. The aim speed and the weapon swap speed are again icing on the cake. Reason why weapon swap speed is also somewhat important, because there's going to be festering ridden, and when they attack you, you get less reload speed, swap speed, and all that different stuff. So this kind of helps negate some of that too, so that's why I just use coffee. Ammo belt is required in every build. Gives you 50% ammo capacity, gives you reload speed. Speaking of ammo capacity, let's go over the ammo capacity cards real quick, and also the reload speed cards. So let's talk about what's good and what's not. So I would not recommend using this. No one uses this card. You're not going to be switching weapons like that, so why would you use this card? I really, really would recommend using these specific types of cards, and the reason why is because they shoehorn you into using very specific builds. Out in the field, you're going to be getting a lot of cards. So the only reason why you should ever use these cards is, for example, if you're using a sniper build and you know you're going to be doing that. But I would question why you're using a sniper build, because you don't need to use a sniper build in this game, especially with how many ridden there are. It's really, there's no point in really doing that. But that being said, just stay away from these. They're not very good. There is no reason to use this when ammo for all exists. This gives 1% more damage. It gives your whole team ammo. So this card's pretty worthless to take ammo for all. I would not really recommend using these cards, because on No Hope you're going to have ammo issues. If you use any of these that take up ammo, their gadget cost is kind of not that great. And I'm not even talking about the effective card, I'm talking about any of them in general. This one's bad. You need move speed on No Hope. No Hope, you're going to be facing a lot of ridden that get bonus move speed and sprinting, so you definitely don't want minus move speed. That's automatically bad. This one is bad. Again, if you see anything that says revive is bad, you don't need this card, but if you want more ammo, you can take it. It's not bad. This is bad. Okay, now we need to talk about the scavenger cards. They're all bad. Why are they all bad? Because they mess with the spawning. So a lot of people are going to be running copper scav. So if you start taking these, then you get less spawns for copper. You really don't want less spawns for copper if you're running copper scav, which a lot of people are running. So basically, don't take scavenger cards other than Copper Scavenger. They're just not good. They're not worth the slot. And in fact, characters have these built into their actual characters. So if you actually need that stuff, just play the character that has it, right? You don't want to take those cards. You have a limited amount of cards, so just don't. Seriously, don't. Um, this one can be good, but why would you take this when you could just take DPS? Like, DPS is always on, so if you're going to take this card, then take Reload or DPS. Again, just don't use the... This one's actually okay. I take that back. These in general, don't use these. This one's okay. If you're planning on using an assault rifle, there are so many different types of assault rifles. This one's actually okay. As long as you're planning on using an assault rifle. Not really shoot. It's a pretty balanced build. You're not shoehorning yourself. Again, if something takes up a slot, it better be good. And, well, I would argue this can be good for melees. Specifically for melees only. Other than that, I don't really know. Again, this can be good. It's for melees, but why would melees want this when they're using specific cards where they want to actually kill melees? I mean, kill the Ridden with melee attacks. So you probably don't want this on a melee anyway, but it can get you out of a tight spot. You don't need this. There are cards that give guaranteed bashes. You don't need that at all. So, what else was I thinking of? You don't want any minus ammo cards. Also, health is typically not a great stat, so don't go for that. These accessory cards are a trap. So the reason why I want to talk about the accessory damage cards real quick is the best accessory in the game, bar none, is flashbangs. So you need them to kill bosses on No Hope. I've seen some people say, well, you can use a grenade build. I would probably say not to do that because you're not going to get that many grenades. And buying grenades in the shop is extremely expensive. And not only that, it also kind of shoehorns your build and forces you to do certain things. Now, you can have... I don't have Pinata yet, but if you get Pinata, that can significantly diminish that issue that you have, because then you can get a lot more offensive accessories. Especially if you're killing crowds of Ridden with them, then that kind of helps with that issue. But other than that, I don't know if I would take that or not. It really just depends. But unless you're using Pinata, I would just stay away from accessory damage. It's not that great. This one can be good too. It depends. Again, you're going to be shoehorning yourself and using shotgun. If you're taking this, I'm assuming that you're going to be using buckshot. So let's talk about temporary health now, because that is a major thing to talk about in this game. So temporary health, what is it? Temporary health is that little blue bar that you get. It's basically overhealing, and we're going to talk about why temporary health is important. And this was the card I was talking about. If you're playing this with that shotgun card, it's actually pretty good, because you get ammo capacity, 10% damage for using shotguns, and you also get temporary health. So temporary health blocks damage to your primary health bar, and it also, this is the biggest part, not only does it reduce the damage you take to your health bar, it reduces trauma damage that you take. Because temporary health does not count as trauma damage. That's what makes it really, really, really important to have temporary health. Now, in No Hope, Face Your Fears is kind of a requirement. Why is this a requirement? Because there's a lot of acid damage that you're going to be taking. Because of all that acid damage, you do want to make sure that you have Face Your Fears in your deck. Doesn't matter if you're melee, sniper, whatever. Face Your Fears is basically kind of a requirement unless you like taking acid damage to the face. Unfortunately, it's a lot of force damage. There's nothing you can really do. This card is specifically against the Burning Ridden with an asterisk, but mostly because there's going to be acid ridden all over the place, and this helps reduce that damage you take from acid ridden. Obviously, if you're not within 2.5 meters of a ridden, you're not going to be taking their acid damage, so this is specifically to counter that acid and it hurting your health bar, and also causing temp health damage. That's specifically what this is for. So this one, Overwatch, can be useful if you're a sniper. This is mostly useless because you're always going to be close to your teammates. So I would recommend just not taking this card. The only reason why you take this card is because you're out in the field, you see it, and that works well with your team strategy. That's when you take this card. Now, Fire in the Hole. This is an interesting card. This is for if you're going to speedrun, this is a great card to have, okay? If you're not using a speedrun deck, this is probably not that great. This would be decent for probably melee decks, I would assume, because there's a lot of temp health that you can get for free. So if you get a lot of temporary accessories that drop, this can definitely reduce the amount of damage that you're taking to your health bar and your temporary health. The sprint speed is also really nice. Now what this card is really going to be for is that there's going to be certain decks where you're going to have to run through it, and you got to run through sections. You don't really want to take this card. This is kind of a card that you want to find out in the field, but it is what it is. There's a specific build for this. Don't take this unless you're using the Molotov build. Otherwise, it's kind of worthless. It does work, but meh. This is also not that great unless you're a medic. If you're a medic, this is great. If you're not a medic, don't take this card. Yeah, pretty much. Now, and this is for like a pure medic deck, but I don't know why you'd be running a pure medic deck. You're better off just running a DPS deck and just killing stuff. This is bad. Don't take this. There's not enough damage resistance to make that card good. I'm sorry. That being said, we can talk about trauma. Well, let's talk about reload. The reload cards. So, let's talk about the reload cards. This one is pretty good. You can take it if you want to, but there's not really a reason to if you're using coffee. This is why you run coffee instead of this card, because coffee also gives you use speed and some other benefits. The reload difference is negligible, not really worth it. This card is pretty much never worth it. If you're going to take this card, take this card. Sure, you lose the aim down sights. You're not going to be, unless you're playing sniper rifles, you're not aiming down sights anyway. These cards are always kind of bad. The reason why is, well, you're going to be shoehorned into using specific cards. So unless you're using a speed build, like, why would you use this? And on top of that, there's a lot of cards that get move speed while shooting. If you see move speed while shooting, they're nice, but they're really not great. This one is good for melees, but if you're using melees, you're pretty much only going to be primarily using melee weapons, so it's not really a great card. Again, talked about on your mark, talked about these cards. This is the must-have card. Why is this must-have? Because 50% ammo capacity, the reload speed is just icing on top. I already talked about coffee. You pretty much have this in every deck. It's pretty much required. Again, if you see something that says revive, don't take it. It's bad. This is not a great card because, you know, it doesn't have 100% uptime. 5 seconds is not that long either. Again, this kind of shoehorns you into a build. I've tried this card and noticed no real change. You're better off with just getting damage, man. Like, we have 15 cards we can use. Just use damage. Again, talked about that. Is this good? This is good if you find it out in the field. Do not recommend wasting one of your card slots for it. Does not mean this is a bad card. It just means don't waste your initial card slots on it. This is primarily for snipers, but I don't know why you would take this card when the problem is that secondary weapons already basically have infinite ammo, so you're not really worried about that. And there's also the card that switches your secondary with the primary, which you'll probably end up using. Let me find it real quick. It's pretty easy to see. Where are
I got a shitload of coppers for that old rifle I had lying around.
Here. You'll take this card. So what this card does is you can use a primary instead of a secondary in that slot. So snipers will typically take this, and then you're going to be running cards like Cold Brew Coffee that already increases your swap speed anyway. Now, the last thing I kind of want to go over is the damage cards. I'm gonna go over the move speed cards too, but that's gonna be pretty short. Let's do move speed first. That's gonna be pretty short. So, cross trainers is good when paired with another move speed card. If you're only gonna take one move speed card, you basically have two choices. One of those is fleet on foot. This means that you will always have move speed or use run like hell, which means when you don't take damage, which is pretty much all the time. If you're surrounded, this isn't really going to be that great either. So, most people just take run like hell. I take fleet of foot because there are specific levels where you might accidentally get hit by something, and then all of a sudden, you're slow as molasses. Now, the problem is, On No Hope, again, a lot of the enemies get buffs to their move speed. So you kind of need about, I'd say, 20% or more move speed over your base, which is where Run Like Hell comes into play to give you that move speed, so you can actually get away from them. But it really kind of, you can even combine these if you want to. That's actually really good. Um, I don't really recommend weak spot damage cards unless you're playing a build that's specifically for it. The reason why you don't really want this card is because there are multiple enemies in the game, including bosses that hide their weak spots. If you find this out in the field, it's a great pick, probably one of the best picks that you can take, but as one of your starter cards, you're going to be fighting a lot of tall boys, and tall boys like hiding their weak spot, so you're better off with raw damage. Like, you would probably, even though I say not use glass cannon, you'd be better off with glass cannon than hyper focus, simply because this is raw damage, and it gets your weapons up to a threshold, so where monsters ridden, so what monsters ridden are, that's a corruption card that increases the health by ridden by a lot. So that will help you keep your threshold high enough to one-shot them with most guns in the game, including secondaries. So that is actually pretty relevant. But moving on. So basically, you'll probably use one of these. You don't need any of the other move speed cards. If you see anything that says... yeah, accuracy is actually pretty good, but the move speed while crouched is negligible. There are YouTubers that went over this stats and stuff over move speed while firing and crouch and all that different type of stuff, and it's just not worth it. So, just keep that in mind. We could talk about accuracy real quick. If you take accuracy, the only two... well, there's three cards that you're really going to think about is this one. If you already take another -8 downsides card, you can use this. Otherwise, you can use this because recoil control is pretty good, and so it's the weak spot damage. It's going to come in handy. I don't really recommend taking this over this. I would take this just because the weak spot damage comes into play. And if you just take one accuracy card, this one will get it done for you. Again, unless you're using snipers. This one can be pretty good if you're using down in front. This pairs for down in front to give you 10% damage resistance. But, meh. I mean, meh. Because if you're playing in public lobbies, you probably don't really need down in front that much. It's mostly for solo play. Now, let's go ahead and talk about a few of these cards I have. You kind of want Fit as a Fiddle. You don't need it. But the reason why this helps is because, basically, what this does is it allows you to have more bolster health. Bolster health is temporary health. That's why it's important. So this essentially makes it so when you're using things like Face Your Fears, this is what allows you to have more temporary health, if that makes sense. And having more temporary health is good for obvious reasons. Well, I say obvious reasons, but basically it means you take less trauma damage, you take less health damage. That's why it's good. Well rested isn't as needed, but what this does is whenever you are healed by a medical item, if you tend to overheal with a lot of stuff, meaning you don't use all the heal, that'll be turned into temporary health. This means you take less damage. That's why well rested is pretty good. There's also another card. I'm surprised it didn't show up. It starts with a P. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's a card where if you use a recovery item, you give them 20 temporary health. Where is it? I think it was POU. Yeah, here it is. Poultice. So, well, no, that's a different one. That's good too if you're a medic only. If you're the medic, this gives basically your special ability to heal someone for like 25 health. That basically doubles it. It's pretty good. Though you don't really need that because Amped Up exists. If you don't have Amped Up, you can use that. Otherwise, just use Amped Up. It's better in pretty much almost every scenario, other than maps where there's constant horde spawns. What was it called? Oh, this one. I was looking for this. So you can use this one. This one is whenever you use a medical accessory, you get 20 temporary health. This one's actually pretty good. So if you don't want to use well rested, it's not really a reason to not use well rested. But if you don't want to use well rested, you can just use this. That is an option that you do have. That being said, that pretty much goes over these cards. Now let's talk about damage cards. Let's say you would prefer more damage in your deck. Well, if you want more damage in your deck, you can go with this. I don't really recommend it, like for the reasons I said before, is a lot of them are either have armored weak spots, so you can't hit their weak spots to begin with because you have to shoot off the armor first. And a lot of them would hide their weak spots, like tall boys hide their weak spots unless they're stumbled or they're attacking you already. Basically, if they're not melee attacking you, their weak spot's hidden. So, where's the other damage cards? There's a lot of damage cards to go over, really. This is one of the best ones. This causes the target to take 1% increased damage for getting shot at, up to 15%. I believe this does work with the team as well. So this is a team-wide 15% damage buff. A lot of people run Shredder, so maybe you can argue you don't need it, but at the same time, it depends on who's killing the... This is for killing mutation. It depends on who's killing the mutation at what time. This just allows anyone to shoot at the mutation and help out. Now, let's see. There's not a reason to use this one when the other one exists. This is the best weak spot damage card. If you're taking one, take this. The minus move speed when shooting is pretty much irrelevant because you're always going to be shooting. I mean, you're always going to be basically shooting in place. You're not going to be moving and shooting at the same time in most cases. This is a really good card. I use this a lot. So what this does is when you're shooting, it gives you extra damage, fire rate, and swap speed. Even when you're using shotguns, this is still very, very useful. Why is it useful? Because you have a lot of reload speed. You can get typically 8 to 10 stacks depending on what your reload speed is and what the shotgun is. And what this really does is that swap speed. So this is the most important part because it stacks up to 20 times. So let's say you have 8 stacks of this. Well, that's 40% swap speed. There are a lot of times where you're going to get debuffs where you get minus swap speed. This completely negates those debuffs. Trust me, this is a great card. Even if you're not using LMGs or assault rifles or SMGs, this is still a good card to take. The only card I would not use this with is snipers. It's the only weapon I wouldn't use this with. Sniper rifles. Okay, what else? Damage resistance is really only good for melee. So if you're not playing melee, don't take it. Minus stamina efficiency is always bad in this game because you always have to run. So just never take anything that says minus stamina efficiency, not good. This is a bad card. Why is this a bad card? Because stumble damage is not good. So what is stumble damage? That's pretty much... You would have to look at the stats, but you can just trust me when I say this. They literally have so much stumble damage that damage itself would give you more stumble damage because the damage you do gives you more stumble than this card does. So there is no reason to take this card when this card exists, which gives you bullet penetration. Now, what's bullet penetration for? It's basically for killing the smaller ridden. This basically means that the bullets will penetrate the target and the round will keep going. Silver bullets is pretty good. Some people kind of downplay this card. But effective range basically is the damage scaling of your weapon. And once bullets get outside of the effective range, it's no longer good. This is really good on basically shotguns because once you get the attachment that increases the range, you basically have the base range of assault rifles. So basically you can snipe with shotguns. If you have a bit of accuracy, you can hit targets downrange. That's what this is for. It's actually really good. I've used it often on shotgun builds. I have different shotgun builds, so it really depends on what you're going for, but it's definitely pretty good. This one's kind of not needed, but if you want it, if everyone uses this, everyone gets 40% more ammo, and then it's what's that, 12% team damage total. So it can be useful if you want it. This I need to talk about this. Oh my gosh, I have seen so many people say to take this card and There is another card. So to take this card, it needs for the mini. You don't need these cards. There's a reason why you don't need these cards. It's because defibrillators exist. So defibrillators, if you have, say, a hazard pay card, you basically get a free defibrillator. It costs a little bit more than that, but if you're running both of these, that's a free defibrillator every round. What does the defibrillator do? It revives a dead teammate. On no hope, this is very, very important. Because if someone gets down, you probably don't have time to pick them up anyway. They're probably going to die. There's not too much you can do about that. So the best thing you can do is actually just buy defibrillators. So instead of using this card, you can literally put it in hazard pay and it'll be 100 times better than this. Because whenever you don't need to buy defibrillators, guess what? That is free copper to use on team upgrades. This is a bad card. I don't, and then this is also planning to die. You remember what I said? Don't plan to die. Like, again, don't plan to die. Like, seriously, just don't. Let's go over the other damage cards. I'm not going to go over melee because melee is whatever. This is a good card. It really depends though, but this is a ramping card. So like if you're using a whole bunch of other DPS cards, then you can use that. If you're going to use either of these, take this one because you can negate swap speed. Like I said, coffee already negates this card's negative side effects. Don't recommend it because it's really not that great. There's another one called Bomb Squad. It's right here. So this one can be good, primarily because you get 25% team explosive damage. So if everyone runs a Bomb Squad, this is actually a pretty good card because then your frag grenades start nuking specials, and you also get that team explosive damage resistance, which is, you know, that's pretty good. So what does explosive damage? So you're talking about things like the gas cans, not the ones that do the flames, but the propane tanks. That's what I'm talking about. So the propane tanks, this will make it so that those don't damage you. So if an accident happens, you don't have to worry about that. And then also lobbers and things that do AoE explosive damage, just reduce the damage you take from that. Also, side note, scar tissue is pretty bad. The reason why this is bad, because no matter how much damage resistance in this game that you get, everything will always do 1 damage. Acid typically does damage in 1 ticks of 1. So Face Your Fears is infinitely better than this card because Acid already does damage in ticks of basically 1 anyway. So if you find this out on the field, you can take it. It's not a bad card to take out on the field. This is not a card you want in your starter deck. It's bad. First Bandage, waste of a card slot. I've tried this. It just tends to take up an extra card slot that you don't need to take up. So it's like, why would you take this? I don't know. What else? Oh, Belligerent is really good, but then again, there's also a downside. If you're on a map where it's permanent hordes, this card becomes useless because you can't stack it. Every other level, this is a great card. I would say 95% of the time, this is a great card. And there's the other 5% where you're going to run sections where there's nothing but hordes, and this becomes a liability. Good card, though. It does have a ramping effect, so you do have to... I would say after you get 3 hordes, this becomes a very solid choice. Now, anything else?
I'm sure it's passing by slowly, huh?
This is a bad card. Would not recommend taking it. This is a okay card, but this is a card that you want to find out in the field. It's not a card you want in your starter deck. Yeah, that's a bad card. Like, there's just cards that give you damage resistance all the time, so why would you ever take this? You don't stack damage resistance cards because you don't have enough card space for it. This can be... This can be good if you troll, okay? Like, there could be certain situations where you can troll and make a meme deck, and you can make that work. It's a good... Not really. Let me take a look at the rest of the cards, see if there's anything that I missed real quick. Slow resistance is pretty worthless in this game. It doesn't do anything. Like, you get slowed 10% less, but you're still slowed like 80% instead of 90%. Wow, what a big difference. That's why it's bad. That's a bad card. There's no reason to take that. Again, if you see minus, like, I've seen some people say that they don't notice a difference. This is because there are certain corruption cards. Like, for example, there's certain, I believe, Ferocious Ridden do like twice the damage. So, yeah, you'll get one-shotted if you have minus damage resistance. This is a bad card. Don't take this. Don't ever take this. Because if you take damage, you lose all your stamina. If you're sprinting, it's bad. Don't take it.
I think that barely recommended did the trick.
Like, literally, just don't.
Yesterday.
Oh, yeah? That's good.
Let's see.
Cheered me up.
I wish this was something other than revive speed. Because this actually isn't, like, if you're a doctor, this actually isn't bad. But the revive speed is trash. This just makes you more mobile when you're shooting, not really needed, because you're kind of going to be funneling enemies in the corridors. That's why this isn't really needed. You're not really going to be running around and shooting. If you're running around and shooting, you're typically going to be screwing over your teammates anyway. Again, like I said, you can take Glass Cannon if you want to. I just don't recommend it because you don't need it. There's plenty of other damage cards. Again, don't take Scavenger cards. They're bad. Other than Copper Scavenger.
Telling me.
They're a waste of a slot. Even if... What I mean by they're bad, they're so bad that even if you're out in the field, you shouldn't take these cards. This is really not that great of a card. It slows down Ridden, but they all die in one shot anyway, except for maybe like Tall Boys or something. But they're better cards. Hold on. There were some cards I missed. Now I remember what I missed. These cards are really good. So what does this do? So the 5% stumble damage is okay. It's not a bad stat. But what this does is after you've killed a mutation, next time you shoot another mutation, it'll be stumbled. So if you're using a DPS deck, this is great for it. Even if you're not using a DPS deck, this is still great for it. Simply because of the fact that this also stumbles the the ones that shriek and bring hordes. This is also great against them because they get stumbled. You have plenty of time to kill them. This is good for melee decks. If you're using melee deck, use this instead of this. But pretty much this is a great card to use. Definitely recommend this one. There's not too much else in here to talk about. But yeah, that just goes over the cards you should use and why. I do hope that this was a pretty useful video going over most of the cards. I'll just do a quick brief look at the rest of them, just to make sure I didn't miss any of them. I do have almost all the cards now. This ain't a great card, but you can take it if you want to. Oh, I forgot to talk about damage resistance and trauma resistance. Okay, so what is damage resistance? It reduces the damage take. What is trauma resistance? Reduces the max health that you lose. If you have to choose between damage resistance and trauma resistance, always take trauma resistance. Why do you take trauma resistance? Because it's very, very easy to heal your health. So this right here, this card right here, amped up, will basically top off your health. So all you have to do is take some trauma resistance cards,
Finished refurbishing that old truck,
and you will be good. The two cards I normally use are this one and this one for no hope. It really depends on what you want to do, because you're gonna have to sacrifice something in your deck if you want to do this. But fire damage is not something that's common. There's basically 3 ways you're gonna take fire damage. Some idiot shoots a fuel tank or a gas can. I don't know why they would do that, but it can happen. It does not happen in solo play, but if you're playing online, it can happen, and you can die because some idiot does that. It is what it is. It's part of playing a team game, okay? That's all I can say about that. If you play with randos, so you don't play with randos, you probably won't have this issue. There's different varying levels of trauma resistance based on difficulty. I believe Recruit gives you bonus, Veteran is neutral, Nightmare is -20, and No Hope is 30. That's why you use this one. This just makes it neutral, so you take the base game's trauma resistance damage. And if you want more, you can add one of these in a dock. You basically won't really have to worry about trauma resistance that much if someone's playing dock. So just things to keep in mind. Anything else? Don't really think there's too much else to talk about. But if you do have to choose between trauma resistance and damage reduction, choose trauma resistance, because even, let's say you had a 99% damage reduction, you're still always going to take 1 damage, and then as you take damage, you're going to lose max health. So even if you're not taking damage, you're still taking trauma damage, you lose max health, when you could have been topping yourself off with something like amped up. And by the time amped up becomes worthless, because there's endless hordes, you could be upgrading your medical accessories to heal the trauma for you, and basically heal your health for you. So it's kind of worthless to have damage reduction. The only thing damage reduction does do is to prevent you from getting one-shotted when your health is set to 60. That's pretty much it. Other than that, it is what it is. But that pretty much should cover everything. And thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.